Have you ever imagined that a dish made with just a few cheap ingredients, pasta, butter, and cheese, was once considered a national lifesaver during one of the darkest times in American history? Not fast food. Not a fancy restaurant dish. But, macaroni and cheese, a creamy, golden plate of pasta that seems like it belongs on a college student's dinner table, yet carries with it an entire era of historical upheaval. And if you love weird food facts, this story might just become one of your favorites. Have you ever tried macaroni and cheese? Was your reaction addicted instantly or got tired of it fast? Drop your thoughts in the comments, I'd love to know which side you're on. And if you had to choose one dish that's delicious, nutritious, and budget-friendly to get you through tough times, what would it be? Comment your personal survival soulmate dish below, who knows, you might inspire someone else. Now, let's rewind back to the 1930s, when the United States entered the Great Depression. Millions were unemployed. Factories shut down. The entire nation was drowning in fear, poverty, and despair. In that context, meals weren't about being delicious or bland, they were about whether there was anything to eat. And people began to get creative in the most budget-conscious way possible. Macaroni and cheese wasn't originally invented in America. Pasta came from Italy, cheese from Europe, but it was the Americans who combined them in a uniquely practical way. One of the first people to bring this dish to the US was President Thomas Jefferson, yes, that legendary President Jefferson. During a trip to Europe, he discovered pasta and cheese and absolutely loved it. When he returned to America, he brought back the recipe and the cooking tools. But it wasn't until much later that the dish became widely accessible. And that didn't happen thanks to a famous chef, it happened because of a company selling boxed cheese. Can you guess which company that was? Take a wild guess and leave it in the comments. I'll reveal the answer in just a few minutes. In 1937, right in the middle of the economic downturn, Kraft introduced the very first boxed macaroni and cheese. Just add water, boil it for a few minutes, and you had a creamy, filling meal for the whole family. The price? Only 19 cents. Enough to feed 4 people. No fridge needed. No chef required. Sounds like the perfect national buddy during a crisis, doesn't it? Before long, Kraft mac and cheese became the go-to meal, not because everyone adored the rich, cheesy flavor, but because everyone simply needed to survive. Have you ever tried a canned or boxed food that made you feel both grateful and confused at the same time? Share that dish in the comments, I bet someone out there will totally relate. When World War II broke out, meat and many ingredients became scarce, and once again, macaroni and cheese took the spotlight. A meal that didn't need meat or fancy oil, yet had enough calories to keep soldiers, workers, and even kids going through the day. And here's another one for lovers of weird food facts, macaroni and cheese, now a comfort food staple, was once marketed as a survival essential during war, a dish that fed both armies and children with the same humble recipe. And the surprising thing is, after the war, when the economy recovered, the dish didn't disappear. It became a part of childhood, a comfort food, something that brings ease and warmth in millions of American households. A dish born from crisis, but one that survived. Thanks to memory. If you think macaroni and cheese is just pasta mixed with cheese, well, you're not wrong, but you're not completely right either. Because behind that seemingly simple plate of pasta is an entire journey of survival, adaptation, and becoming an American cultural icon. And remember how I mentioned the Kraft company earlier? Exactly. Kraft is the unsung hero behind the breakthrough that turned mac and cheese into a national staple. Here's one of those weird food facts you don't hear every day. What started as a desperate meal during economic collapse is now considered one of America's ultimate comfort foods. That transformation? Pure cultural magic. Interestingly, this dish was once looked down on by gourmet chefs as cheap canned food with no culinary value. But here's the irony, in pop culture, Kraft mac and cheese is everywhere, from sitcoms, commercials, to even modern art exhibitions. It doesn't need anyone's validation. It's simply a part of collective memory. If you've ever lived off instant noodles during exam season, or survived the end of the month on fried egg sandwiches, you'll understand, poor people's food doesn't mean meaningless food. So here's my question for you: do you have a dish tied to a tough time in your life, but that you still remember fondly? Share it in the comments. Sometimes those memories are the warmest ones we carry. Fast forward to today, mac and cheese didn't just survive. It leveled up. These days, you can walk into high-end restaurants and order mac and cheese with black truffle, lobster, or even edible gold sprinkled on top. From being a symbol of poverty, it flipped the script and became a luxurious item. Kind of like how banh mi with cold cuts gets reinvented into Wagyu banh mi, right? But this transformation actually reflects something deeply rooted in American culture: creativity born from hardship, and heritage shaped from simplicity. It doesn't have to be fancy, as long as it's memorable, it's meaningful. What do you think about the trend of turning humble dishes into gourmet experiences? Is it a way to honor them, or just a marketing stunt? I'd love to hear your honest opinion, so don't hold back. Here's another of those weird food facts: during World War II, mac and cheese became essential in American households because it didn't need meat. It wasn't just tasty, it was strategic. A carb-loaded, calorie-rich, shelf-stable survival food. To me, the story of macaroni and cheese isn't just a chapter in culinary history, it's a lesson in resilience. That sometimes, we don't need to invent something brand new. Just knowing how to combine what we already have, at the right time, in the right way, can create something unforgettable. From President Jefferson to wartime workers. From a 19-cent boxed meal to the nation's comfort food. From poverty to childhood nostalgia. A plate of mac and cheese may not change the world, but it has quietly connected millions of people through its simplicity and sincerity. And if you're someone who loves digging into history through weird food facts, this podcast is probably your happy place. So don't forget to follow the channel so you won't miss the next episodes. And remember, sometimes, what builds a culture isn't the glamorous stuff, it's the dish you ate when it felt like you had nothing else. Thank you for sticking with me to the very end of this podcast. I hope today brought you a little warmth, even if it came from something as humble as a plate of macaroni and cheese. See you in the next episode. And wishing you a day that's as soft, rich, and just cheesy enough, just like this dish.